Rise and shine, people, we have a Steam Spring Sale today! A new season is upon us, and you know it means savings, it means PC gaming. Strap yourselves in. I'm gonna give my recommendations, a list of games I think you should keep your eye out for this Steam Spring Sale 2025. Let's get right on into it, shall we? I know, hold your horses. I know this one's only 20% off, but Baldur's Gate 3, in my opinion, is a must-play game. It has quickly become one of my favorite games I've ever played. Going into it, I wasn't sold on the Dungeons & Dragons style of game, let alone the combat, but after playing it, I've fallen in love with it. It's a game I can just always come back to time and time again for a little bit or for a long period of time and just enjoy myself. I love the co-op in this game. It's so fun and seamless and it just works. You can go off do your own thing, while your partner goes and do their own thing, meet together during various events if you want. It just works. The characters are so expertly written. The world is beautiful. The music is gripping and varied and just oozes that high fantasy charm that can be really hit or miss with a lot of games nowadays. But Baldur's Gate 3, in my opinion, nails it across the board, and we'll soon have a new update for it with Update 8 bringing in new subclasses, let alone other additions to the game. In my opinion, it is one of the best value propositions in all of gaming, and also one of the best games overall that I've ever played. And if I were to remake my top 10 games of all time video, this game would absolutely be solidly in there. Baldur's Gate 3 is 20% off for $47.99. Another game that's a bit more recent, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, and I'm gonna shout this game out in particular because it was just announced that they're working on the third game. I hear great things about Space Marine 1, I haven't played it myself, I've seen a bit of gameplay, but I have played Space Marine 2 a couple of times, and the game is great. It's a game that harkens back to the way a lot of first-person, third-person games largely felt back in the days of the 360 and the PS3. I don't think the story is necessarily anything to really write home about, but it is just a fun time overall, filled with visual spectacle and rule of cool, dripping and oozing from every pore. The weapons are fun, the combat is great, there's a great variety of enemies in this game as well, and it's just a really well executed third-person shooter. I don't think the multiplayer in particular is anything to really write home about, but it's a fun time for a little bit at least. And there's also a good variety of co-op gameplay that you can really partake in. You have co-op specific missions and also just the main campaign. I'm not all that familiar with the 40k verse, so if you're worried about that, you don't really need to be. You're not going to understand every reference and everything in the game if you don't understand 40k, but you'll still understand enough to have a good time with it. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is 35% off at $38.99. Look, with the amount of videos and shorts I've made about Metaphor Refantazio, you know it was a surefire lock-in for this video. Metaphor Refantazio, in my opinion, is one of the best games ever made, and also, in my opinion, the magnum opus of Atlas Studios, the creators of Shin Megami Tensei and Persona. And it blends all the best elements of those two franchises for me into one cohesive package that is a brilliant time all around. It's well executed, it's well paced, I love the story, I love the music, not as much as other Atlas games in terms of the music, but I still think the soundtrack is really good. The combat is absolutely expert. I love the press turn system. It's a great iteration on that Shin Megami Tensei style of turn-based combat. It is great customization in terms of the archetype system, with decent dungeon design, and just a great story and a great cast of characters overall. It's one of the best JRPGs made in the last few years in my opinion. And if you're a fan of either Shin Megami Tensei or Persona, or you always kind of wanted to dive into those series, you just never really knew when to start, I would fully recommend Metaphor Refantazio. Some say fantasy is dead. I happen to disagree. Metaphor Refantazio is 25% off for $52.49. Look, we all know about Doom. Doom is great. Doom is awesome. You are Doom guy and you fight a bunch of demons in brutal, grotesque ways and it's awesome. Amazing music, amazing first-person shooter gameplay. Look, we're not going into Doom expecting the most, groundbreaking narrative of all time or anything like that, and doesn't need to be, but it's weirdly good and compelling enough. There's a great sense of weapon variety, both in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Enemy variety also bolsters the experience because each enemy plays differently to each other, and you can customize your loadout and customize your weapons to do various different things to suit your own playstyle. It's great. That's just kind of it. It's a great first-person shooter. So if you want to get acclimated with these games before Doom the Dark Ages comes out later this year, Doom 2016 is 90% off for $1.99, and Doom Eternal is 75% off for $9.99. Oh, Enter the Gungeon, aren't you just a charming little experience of a game? Now, weirdly enough, despite the fact this game is here, I'm not that big of a fan of roguelike experiences overall. But a while back, I did dive into Enter the Gungeon at least a little bit, and I can see its charm, I can see its appeal. It's a hectic, chaotic experience that has that goofy, just gone aesthetic, because that makes sense. Look, it's Devolver Digital, and it's one of those games you can easily dump a ton of hours in if the game really clicks for you. And while I eventually bounced off of Enter the Gungeon because I'm just not that big on, roguelikes, if you are and you just love a really chaotic experience, especially if you loved games like Hades, I would recommend checking out Enter the Gungeon. You might find yourself falling in love with it. Enter the Gungeon is 90% off for $1.49. Oh, my childhood! Command and Conquer. Look, a lot of people will think of stuff like Age of Empires or StarCraft when you imagine RTS. I grew up with Command and Conquer. RTS is a genre that has kind of fallen out of favor the last, what feels like a decade at this point, if not more, but it's a tactical strategy game where you're essentially building a base of, well, soldiers, tanks, planes, oh my. You're constructing an army and then commanding it to conquer the enemy. See what I did there? Called being clever, wordplay. And not too long ago, they ported a lot of the Command & Conquer games to Steam, and they bundled them all into this thing called the Remastered Collection. And you get a hell of a lot of games for this thing. The story of Command & Conquer is just crazy, but it's lovable at the same time, and while some of these games may be quite dated, I still think the charm persists, and if you love RTS, I think you owe it to yourself to at least try Command & Conquer. I spent hours and hours of my life growing up playing Command & Conquer, the story campaigns, playing 1v1 against my cousin. And also, Command & Conquer music is legendary! And you'll know exactly what I mean if you play a bit of Red Alert. If I recall, and I saw the cutscene earlier today, I think the plot to Red Alert is that 3 Soviet minds go back in time to foil Albert Einstein from, weaponizing the West. Dude, it's crazy. It's so much fun as well. Command & Conquer Remastered Collection is 70% off for $5.99. Crazy value. Look, I normally talk about Halo with each of these videos because I absolutely love Halo, and that hasn't changed, but we're going to talk about Halo Wars Definitive Edition for this video, for this little mini arc of RTS we have going on in the middle of the video. Halo Wars is the RTS spin-off of Halo, and it's weirdly good. Now, it was designed for console, however, I'm always an advocate that RTS just plays better on PC anyways, and Halo Wars has a particularly gripping and interesting story set in the Halo universe, with a decent cast of characters and a pretty good antagonist in my opinion. Good mission variety, and it's just a really good time overall, especially if you love Halo and RTS. It's a really fun time in my opinion, and Halo Wars Definitive Edition is 75% off for $4.99. And I dream of the sky. Bioshock is one of the most well-known and well-beloved FPS series of all time. Some incredible stories that will stick with you. And I grew up with the third game, Bioshock Infinite. But these games handle setting just about as well as the best in the industry. There's a reason these games have stood the test of time, why people always just find their way coming back here to Bioshock 1, 2, or Infinite. These games are sticky, with great memorable characters, a well-written plot, and beautiful set pieces that are explored in interesting ways. It's an insane journey from start to finish, and it's combined with really interesting gameplay that blend FPS shooter gameplay alongside magic, and I know that sounds a little bit weird, that's kind of how it operates in Bioshock. Well, it's not really magic, but it's essentially magic in terms of actual gameplay. Casting various, spells after you chug a tonic. Look, it makes sense in context. And if you want an FPS game that is rather unique and also focuses a lot on the actual story going on and the setting, I would wholeheartedly recommend Bioshock. Either the one that I grew up with, Bioshock Infinite, which is 75% off for $7.49, or you can just splurge and get Bioshock the Collection and just get everything for 80% off for $11.99. It is my duty that every time one of these Steam sales comes around that I have to yap about Titanfall 2. It's just mandatory. Speaking of great FPS games, Titanfall 2, a game that, and really the series that just keeps getting screwed based on its release date. And God, I wish Respawn and EA would just get around to making a third one of these, because Titanfall 2 was such a memorable, fun, and entertaining time. And I'm just talking about the campaign, because the campaign itself, in my opinion, is one of the best FPS campaigns ever made. The story is not even, like, particularly unique. It's the man with the giant robot story you've probably seen a bunch of times. It's just really well executed here, with great gameplay. It's like, how many times is there something that involves giant robots, and you just want to be in the giant robot and not be the guy outside of it? But in this game, both work and are super fun. When you're just as the pilot in the overworld, going through the various missions, you're extremely fast and mobile with a bunch of, mobility. But when you're in the Titan, you're slower, more methodical, with different loadouts for different playstyles, like machine guns or a shotgun build or a flame build, stuff like that, and it's super cool and fun, with a good story that just keeps going and unravels, and it's not too long or anything like that, but I think it's perfectly paced with great mission variety that just creates a really fun and entertaining experience from start to finish. Titanfall 2 Ultimate Edition is 90% off for $2.99. This is going to be a bit of a weird entry here. It's going to be Sonic Adventure 2. Now, I played this game on stream before, and I had a bit of a mixed reception to it, let's say. However, there are qualities to this game that I still hold to the idea that they are charming and hold up. It's a bit of an aged game, though. Not every element really holds up to par in the modern day. However, especially if you grew up with this game and you just have a lot of nostalgia for Sonic, especially if you just saw Sonic Movie 3, I would recommend Sonic Adventure 2. May not be a game necessarily for me, but it's undeniable that this game appeals to a lot of people out there. It has multiple different, game styles within it. The Tails and Eggman stages have you piloting giant robots, which is pretty cool, to go through various stages. The Knuckles and Rouge stages kind of just have you, playing as them trying to track down various things, and then Sonic and Shadow is what you expect from 3D Sonic. You're going fast in various stages, and they are largely pretty cool. I'm not that big of a fan of the space levels later on, but that's just personal preference. Sonic Adventure 2 is 50% off for $4.99. Last Steam sale, I talked about Final Fantasy VII, and while I still adore Final Fantasy VII a lot, I want to give a shout out this time to Final Fantasy IX, which, one of the more surprising games I've ever played. I don't know how else to describe Final Fantasy IX outside of masterpiece. It's a brilliant game. Great combat, with that ATB turn-based style that era of Final Fantasy was well known for. A beautiful world that is so varied and magic and fantastical, you just lose yourself in it. Great characters, one of my favorite cast of characters of any game I've ever played. An absolutely stellar soundtrack. And it's like every issue that Final Fantasy IX has is rectified with modding. Namely Mogri mod. Oh, the combat's too slow. You can speed it up with the mod. Oh, the game has a lot of emphasis on stealing, which has a low % chance to go, and it can be really repetitive and annoying. Well, you can mod it to be 100%. It's one of those games where I would really only recommend playing it on PC because of the changes you can do to the game with modding. That just, any issue that I personally had with this game got rectified with mods. And it just leaves the brilliance that was there with Final Fantasy IX. It's a beautiful, enthralling, engaging ride from start to finish, and it's a game that I look forward to coming back to and playing again in the future, just because the game is that dang good. It was really the culmination of all that Final Fantasy was up to that point in time. And it has this unique way where even if you didn't grow up with Final Fantasy or even Final Fantasy IX, because I didn't, I only got into Final Fantasy like a decade ago. When I went into Final Fantasy IX a couple of years ago, it gave me a feeling of nostalgia. And I didn't have any nostalgia for it, but it did so anyways, because the game is that good. It's that beautiful, it's that whimsical, but also emotionally jam-packed with great storytelling, great development, and amazing characters. I full-heartedly recommend Final Fantasy IX, and do yourself a favor, go pick up Mogri mod alongside Final Fantasy IX, and experience this game game in all of its glory. There's a lot of talk nowadays about a rumored Final Fantasy IX remake or whatever, and honestly, I don't know what I would want out of it that modding, and especially Moguri mod, don't already do for it, like outside of voice acting maybe. I hesitate to use this word a lot, but I would call Final Fantasy IX a powerful game, and it can resonate with you like few others can. A game that blends really dark emotional themes about death and what it truly means to be alive, alongside just how wacky and fun the world is. It's a great dichotomy. Final Fantasy IX is 60% off for $8.39. Alright, look, I have a lot of videos on this channel about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Thought we were gonna get out of this without talking about it, did ya? I love Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It was my co-game of the year, alongside Metaphor Refantazio. I adore this game, and I think the PC version is absolutely gorgeous now that it's finally out. I will always push back on any of the narratives some people try and spin about this game not being a complete package, because this game is jam-packed with content, both in terms of the main story, but also in terms of side content. There's a ton you can choose to do in this game, and while some of the minigames can be rather frustrating, it's by no means a perfect game or a perfect experience. The iteration of the combat loop going from Final Fantasy VII Remake, the ATB system blended with real-time combat, in my opinion has become one of my favorite combat loops I've ever seen in Final Fantasy. It is absolutely stupendous, and this game has great enemy variety and boss design go alongside that, on top of a living, really colorful world with amazing characters, amazing moments, amazing music. I can't glaze Final Fantasy VII Rebirth enough. And while yeah, the discount does look to be rather big at 30%, the original price is 70%, so it's only $48.99, so it's not that big of a saving in comparison to a lot of these other games, but if you've had any interest in diving into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I would wholeheartedly recommend it. It's an incredible game. It is 30% off for $48.99. The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky. It's the first game in a giant JRPG series, Trails. And I just got back into the game, and I haven't beaten it or anything, but I can already feel its hooks digging themselves deep within me. It's a turn-based JRPG, where the combat is rather unique. It's based on a grid, moving around, casting various spells as skills, and just doing basic attacks and stuff like that. And the combat loop is actually rather simple, but I find it, like, weirdly addicting, and fun, and interesting. And I will say, the story is exceedingly slow at the beginning, and still kind of is for the most part. It does start to ramp up, though, but if you don't mind a really slow beginning, and you want a JRPG filled with memorable and lovable characters, like, right out of the gate, especially with the protagonist Estelle. Like, oh my god, she is on track to becoming one of my favorite protagonists ever. She is just so colorful and funny, but also, like, emotional in all the right ways when she needs to be. This game is checking all the boxes for me so far, and while I know there is a remake for this game that is supposedly coming out later this year, if you want to get ahead of the curve, if you will, and experience what it was like before that remake comes out, or you just want to play this game to begin with, it is 50% off for $9.99. Expect more videos from me for this game in the future. Look, we all know there was no shot we were gonna make it through this video without me talking about Nier, correct? I love Nier, and I love Nier Automata, and Nier Automata being my favorite game of all time, and it has been for quite a while, and I love it so much. Square Enix and Platinum cooked with this. They absolutely did. It's a third-person, like, well, Platinum action game. Very fast, fluid, and smooth, and just hectic and chaotic, and it's awesome! And it's a game where I have never seen another game utilize the medium of being a video game to tell and further a story like Nier Automata did. I am still waiting for them to make another one of these that's not a gacha mobile game, by the way. But if you like fast-paced hack-and-slash type games, if you love a great story with memorable characters, and one of the best breakdowns of what it means to be human and what it means to be alive I've ever had the pleasure to experience, you owe it to yourself to check out Nier Automata. And its predecessor, Nier Replicant, well, the PC version came out actually after Automata, but the original version came out before Automata. Yes, both of these games are connected. No, you don't need to play the other to understand the other. But both of these games, but especially Replicant, have some of my favorite characters I've ever had the pleasure of, like, well, playing with. They're great, and while I think Replicant has a few more rough edges than Automata in places, I still think the overall goal of what it sets out to do and telling its story, having fun and engaging gameplay, absolutely stupendous soundtracks from start to finish. These games excel at that. Both of them are some of my favorite games of all time, and like I said before, Nier Automata is full stop my favorite game of all time. I love this game. It is the gold standard for me. Nier Automata Game of the Year edition is 60% off for $15.99. And Nier Replicant version, bear with me, 0.1.2247448713 is 60% off for $23.99. Hey Joe, wanna play a zombie game? Dying Light is incredible. And look, I know we went through a period of time there where we were just inundated with zombie games, this one kind of included there, but this is one of the better ones. It's first person, it's open world, and the charm of this game isn't the zombies. They're cool and all, and the story's okay as well. It's the combat, but also the parkour that is so fun. I used to play this all the time with a buddy of mine, and we just had so much fun playing and moving around the world. Nighttime is particularly hectic when the really powerful zombies come into play, but also just jumping and navigating the world is fun and addicting all in its own. And it has a halfway decent story. I'm not too big on the ending, but it doesn't ruin the experience for me or anything like that. And the actual combat that is there is good enough. But god, that parkour is just something else. If you love the idea of surviving in this like post-apocalyptic hellscape amongst a horde of zombies and doing it really in a cool way, I would recommend Dying Light, absolutely. Dying Light Standard 10th Anniversary Edition is 80% off for $3.99. Now for the game I always just keep meaning to come back to and finish, but I never end up doing it, but oh my god, this one's partly at me here. Demon Ex Machina. Are you a fan of giant robots? Of course you are, the giant robots. Do you love Armored Core? Of course you do. Giant robots again. Well, I haven't beaten the entire game, I have played quite a bit of it, and it's really fun. Guess what you do? You pilot a giant freaking robot. And while the art style's a little bit interesting and unique, thanks Switch, and the story hasn't really gripped me yet, the actual gameplay is rather fun and fast-paced, with quite a few different builds because you can customize your freaking giant robot. Also, the main menu theme in this game goes weirdly hard, like more than you think it would. Feels like I'm fighting a final boss and it's just, do you want to stop the game? And the customization you can have for your giant robot is great in this game, and if you're one of those types of people that will spend hours and hours just customizing your various mechs that you have access to, this is one of those games that will really scratch that itch if you've been waiting for, FromSoft to announce something Armored Core related. I really enjoy it. It's Demon Ex Machina and it's 60% off for $19.99. And there we go. Those are just a few of the games that I would recommend you take a look at for this Steam Spring Sale. As is usual, a lot of games are on deep discounts right now. A lot of value available right now. So here's where you come in. Leave a comment down below with what you've picked up, what you've been eyeing up. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. And while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again!